Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Getting Public Library Access to Students webinar, which is part of our School and Public Library Partnership series this fall. In fact, it's actually the last School and Public Library Partnership webinar for now. So just a quick plug as we get started. If you have a great partnership with your school and you're doing something we haven't covered in one of our previous School and Public Library Partnership webinars, please let me know. My information, I will put my email address in the chat box here in just a minute. Email me anytime, let me know what you're doing. I'd love to do a webinar with you. Who am I? My name's Beth Yates, and I am the Children's Consultant from the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office, and I will be your host and your question moderator today. Today we have speakers from two different libraries. We really actually have a house full. So first, we're going to hear from the Jasper County Public Library today. They'll be coming to us from their library up in Northwest Indiana. Their director, Patty Stringfellow, will share how they began providing digital access cards to their middle and high schoolers. And she will be joined by Rebecca Amelong, their technical services librarian, as well as Julie Wallstra, who is a high school librarian from that area. And then after that, we're going to hear from the Hamilton East Public Library, who are here at the State Library with me right now. We've got 4 people from Hamilton East here, so like I said, our room is full. First, we are going to hear primarily from Lori Halowinski. She's the Noblesville Branch Youth Services Manager, and she's going to explain how they began issuing students in their district library cards that have the same number as their student IDs. She's joined here today by Molly Mrozowski, who is their Collection Services Manager, and Terry Zabonik, who is an intermediate school librarian in their district, and then also Anna Sayers, who is the ILS and Electronic Resources Librarian at Hamilton East. So I am thrilled to have so many people willing to share their experiences today, and I'm excited to hear from them all. But first, before we jump into the content of this webinar, I'd like to start off with a couple of announcements from the State Library. First of all, to register for other webinars available from the Professional Development Office and our partners, please visit the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which can be found on our website at www.in.gov/library. For a full list of our current in-person training topics, please see the continuing education page of our website. Today's webinar will be archived and available to access and share on the Indiana State Library's archive training page within 30 days. The other 2 webinars from earlier in this series are already up on the archive site, so if you missed them, be sure to check that out. The Indiana State Library has many ways we try to stay connected to library staff across the state. For weekly updates on upcoming trainings and to learn more about what's happening in libraries across the state, please subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter, The Wednesday Word. Now on to technical issues. If at any point during the webinar you experience any sound issues, please see the sound issues box just below the chat box on the left side of the screen. If there is a global sound issue, meaning others are experiencing the issue also, we will announce it in the chat box. If you're unable to resolve the sound issues you're experiencing, please be reassured that we are recording the meeting and you can watch it offline after the meeting has ended. Again, if there is a global sound issue, we will make an announcement in the chat box. At this time, we are not experiencing any global sound issues. If you have a question for our presenter during this webinar, just type it in the chat box on the upper left side of the screen. I'll be watching and I will get your question to our presenters as soon as there's a good opportunity. And just a side note that because our Jasper County presenters are at their library and not next to me today, just have a little patience with us if we don't get to your question right away, because they can't see the chat box and they also can't see me. So we have to find a good opportunity to ask it to them. And there should also be time near the end for questions too. So the last thing is LEUs. This session is 1 hour, so you'll get 1 LEU today. We have a relatively new procedure for webinar LEUs. To get your LEU certificate today, you will need to remain on the webinar until the very end, and there will be an opportunity for you to download a Word document that you can type your name into and save for your file. And you will only be able to type in the name area, so don't be alarmed if you cannot type anywhere else in that document. Again, you should remain on the webinar until the very end, and you'll receive your LEU then. I will not be sending out certificates as we've done in the past. If you're unable to download it for some reason, you can email me, and I will put my email address in the chat box for you now. And then byates@library.in.gov, there it is. And then without further ado, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Patty in Jasper County. So she is going to share her screen. It might take just a moment for her. And Patty, let me know if you need any assistance. Make sure you unmute your microphone too. Let's see. We might be having some trouble. Okay, just give us 1 second, guys. We might need to contact Patty real quick. I think we've lost connection.
Hi, Beth. This is Patty. I can hear you, and I see your screen. I'm just waiting for you to invite me to share my slides.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, here you go. There you go.
Great. Thank you. All right. I think we're ready to go. Can you see that, Beth?
It is still thinking, but you can go ahead and start talking if you want to.
Okay, great. Thanks, Beth. Good morning, everybody. I am Patty Stringfellow, Director of the Jasper County Public Library. And as Beth said, joining with me today are Becky Amelong, our Technical Services Librarian, and Julie Wallstra, who is the Library Media Specialist at Kankakee Valley High School, a high school located in our service district. And it's a pleasure to participate in this webinar about school and public library partnerships, getting public library access to students. I think I speak for all of us when I express how important partnering is and how much fun it is as well. So we're happy to be a part of today's presentation.
Hey, Patty, it's still thinking. So would you like me? I have your presentation here. Do you want me to share it from my screen?
Yes, please. That would be wonderful.
All right,
Thanks,
just
Beth.
let me know when you want me to proceed on the slides, okay?
I will do that. Thanks.
Okay.
So for us, turning outward and meeting community needs and partnering with others are important to us. So working with Kankakee Valley High School, and particularly with Julie, is a wonderful example of all three of those things. So today we're going to explain how our initiative got started, how the program works, program impacts, challenges, concerns, and then goals for the future. And we'll also allow time for questions, as Beth said. So please make note of any questions that you would have. We're happy to answer them. So our story begins in January of 2015. We had just launched a new long-range plan with a focus on meeting community needs. We were intentionally turning outward and listening to our community, and we were asking, what does our community need from us, rather than what cool programs and services do we think that they need? So we were looking to meet expressed need. That was really key. And Julie was in her first year as library media specialist at KV. And Julie and I knew each other because I had supervised her internship when she was pursuing a master's degree in library science more than 15 years ago. In her new role, she would sometimes reach out to me with a question, and in January of 2015, she called to express a need. Her students, many of them did not have library cards, needed to access our digital collections, namely our databases and our ebooks, but also local history and genealogy resources. And as she expressed her need, I realized that what her students needed was a digital access card. And ironically, this is something that a public library in a neighboring county had just launched. My first response to Julie was, well, we don't have a service like that right now, but we could put it on the list to think about it. And Then after a few days, I thought, wait a minute, what am I doing? We're seeking to meet community need, and this is an expressed need. So I felt we needed to move that to the top of our to-do list. So we did that. And we worked diligently over the course of many weeks to learn how to launch a digital access card. And 9 months later, when Julie's second school year began, her students had their digital access card. We modeled our service after the service of our neighboring library. We actually traveled to that library to learn directly from them how they had done it. And they were very happy to teach us. That's how it goes in Indiana public libraries, or just libraries in general. Everybody is willing to work together and learn from each other. But we did put our own touch on it, and we adapted what they had done to meet the needs of our own community. So as far as how the program works, to begin, we issued cards to high school students at KV and cards to middle and high school students in another school in our service district, Rensselaer Central. And we thought of it as a pilot program, and we marketed it that way with board approval. And we decided to include the second school because we also had a relationship with them, and they were interested when we broached the topic to them and offered the opportunity. So we set up the borrower type for the service DAC, which stands for Digital Access Card. And we had to establish the borrower type because a digital access card only allows access to digital content. A full service or regular library card is still needed to access all library services. So that required a different borrower type in our ILS. So our vision was to provide a digital access card that would allow students easy access to our digital content. The card would be good for this specific purpose, and there was no risk of lost materials because all the content is electronic. Digital access cards were valid for 1 year, and to make things easier for school personnel, we were really working hard to make this easy for everyone. We don't collect those cards when they expire. New cards are made available each school year so that school personnel don't have to keep track of them, students don't have to keep track of them, just to make it easy. Thankfully, Rotary clubs in Rensselaer and DeMotte sponsored our cards, and so they covered the cost to have those plastic cards made. And that sponsorship was possible because I am a member of the Rotary Club, and when my fellow Rotarians learned about our library project, they got excited and wanted to support it and wanted to fund the cost of the cards.
And Patty, this is Beth. I was just going to say that is such a wonderful example of why it's so important that we as library staff get out into the community and participate.
Absolutely. We were talking a little bit before we got started today about the importance of networking and partnering, and that is really the passion that we all have in this room, and the joy comes from working together. And so we definitely appreciate the importance of relationships and working together. So with the Rotarians supporting those cards for us, which would have been an added cost to the program, they took care of that for us. We found it valuable for the kids to have a card that they could carry to show value and to market the library. It was something tangible that they could hold in their hand that represented us. And we do make new cards available each year for those students, as I expressed previously, and no one keeps track of them. It's just in their hands, ready to take them to digital content. So again, we were going for something easy. Our lives are far too complicated. We want to make this simple. A little bit about the cards. Those digital access cards can be used at home or at school. We did not seek parental permission regarding use of library databases and ebook materials with those cards. We feel that our selection policy addresses the parent's role in determining what's appropriate or inappropriate for their kids. However, we did provide an informational letter to parents that introduces them to the service, and we asked Julie and her staff to distribute that letter, which they do, I believe, electronically. And I do have a copy of that letter as an example that I can email to you. And I know that Beth is going to make my contact information available to you at the end of the webinar. But I do believe she's also archived that example with some information that's available to you via the website for today's webinar.
So they'll be able to download those at the end of the webinar.
Okay, great. So we provided that for you in case that's helpful. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you about, and Beth, if you could advance to the next slide, there's a visual for this one. And let me know when you've done that, and I'll go ahead.
It's done.
Okay, great. Thank you. So to make the new service more exciting and interesting for students, we developed a student portal. And we did this in-house. Our webmaster put this together, and I think that it was really key to the students being engaged with these cards. Um, and you all can see this as well. It's a link on our website. The portal can be accessed via myjcpl.org/student-portal, and that link will be available in those extra things that Beth's making available to you to download at the end of the webinar, so you don't have to write that down. But as you look at the portal, you can see that we created some age-appropriate groupings of our resources, as well as a separate page for downloadable items. And we bundled in some of our existing content, including a page of homework links and a guide to preparing for college. And you can see there's an image of our card up there as well to see what that looks like. So regarding program impacts, and Beth, if you would like to advance to the next slide.
There you go.
Thank you. The most significant impact with this program for us is meeting that expressed community need, because we had asked the question, we were trying to be conscious of meeting community need and listening for community need and then meeting it. So for us, I think that's the most significant impact is to do that, an actual action that met a need. But students in our service area now have easy access to digital content, and that is just huge. The slide is a little graph that shows we've seen an increased use of our ebook collection and databases, and we do attribute some of this increased use to those digital access cards. The community relationships and partnerships have been strengthened. Since we've launched these cards, Julie and I have talked about some other things that might be possible, and she continues to express needs. We continue to listen. For me, that's one of the best things about this whole thing are the relationships and the partnering. That's where the joy comes. Students and school personnel are more aware of our library and the services we offer. Julie has made it possible for us to get into the schools to tell students about library resources beyond those digital access cards, because she sees the value to that. She models that for them, and she's helping us make that connection. That would not have happened very likely without her initiative and reaching out to us. I really, really attribute that to her. We are in the third year for this program, and this year we added 2 new schools. And when we did that, she paved the way as well, because those additional schools are private schools that are up in her neighborhood, and she knows school personnel. She could provide a bit of a testimony to them about the importance of these cards, so that when we reached out to them, they were already well aware of what we were offering and the importance of it. And so now we added 2 new schools this year. And I think that another impact is that schools feel valued because we're actively working with them to accomplish their goals. And I see that as a beautiful thing as well.
That's wonderful.
Regarding challenges and concerns, it took time to develop the program parameters because we had never done it. It was new to us, and we had to allow time for board approval of a new service. We had to learn how to set these cards up in our ILS, so there were some technical matters to think about that took time. We had to establish a numbering system for the cards. We had to create a layout and a design for the cards and allow time to order and receive them. We had to get school permission to implement the program, which was easy, again, because of that already established relationship. Julie made that happen because she knew us, and she was able to convey this opportunity to administrators in her school system, and that was the key to the success of the launch. We had to draft the parent letter that I told you about to clearly explain the program and make that available for the school. And as you know, it just takes time to launch a program such as this when it's new to you, and to try to cross T's and dot I's, and you just need lead time to make it happen. But Julie patiently waited as we worked it out, and we really kind of, like I said, put that to the top of the pile that year and made it a big priority. Um,
Patty, can
Go
I ask
ahead.
a quick question?
Yes.
This is Beth again.
Hey,
Um,
Beth.
how did you and Julie and your staff all establish your relationship in the first place? Have you just always been in touch with the schools, or is that a relationship you had to work on?
So for us, Julie was an intern at Jasper County Public Library years ago when she was pursuing her master's degree. So she spent a summer working at Rensselaer Library, where I was working at that time in a different role,
Oh.
and I supervised her internship. So over the course of that summer, we developed a relationship, not just with me, but with other folks here at the library. But Julie was a school teacher in this school system at the time she was pursuing her master's degree. She was working in the classroom, not in the library, but she had a passion and an interest for libraries. And I think probably, and I'm kind of speaking for her, so I might pass the mic to her here in a minute, let her add in. Um, she was hoping, I believe, to take on that role in the school eventually, and so um, that relationship was established many moons ago. So when she did eventually become the school media specialist, um, we had that established relationship. As she was getting going in her role, she just simply had questions now and again that she would reach out to us about, and we sort of reacquainted ourselves and had more regular contact. But I would like to pass the mic to Julie and let her speak to that for a bit, because honestly, that's more her story than mine. So if you don't mind.
Sure. That's really lucky that you had the future school librarian working for you.
Yeah, no, Patty was correct in what she said. She had it. I knew the
Make
relationship.
sure you speak right into the microphone, Julie.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, she's correct in this story. Um, I knew when I got my position as the school library media specialist that there wasn't a big relationship prior to me being there, and I knew they needed one. I knew that having done my internship here, I knew that they also desired a relationship to help them. So having known that, it was easy to reach out to Patty as well.
Thanks
Can you
for the
speak
question,
up a little
Beth.
bit, Julie? Sorry.
Oh, basically, Julie was just reiterating what I said, and just she underscored that she also agrees with the importance of partnering with the schools and the libraries, public libraries and school libraries, and she acknowledged that she knew we had a desire to do that as well, and she just made that happen because she's passionate about it, and she took advantage of the fact that we were here and that we were interested.
Okay, great. We do have one other question. Would you like it now, Patty, or do you want to wait until you're done?
No, go ahead and ask me the question because I'm just about finished, so no problem.
Okay. Laura says, do you have any students who live outside your library district? And do you have digital cards available to them? We're looking at this kind of card, but we have some students in our school district who live outside of our library district. We're not sure how to address this.
Right, that's a frequently asked question, and it's kind of an interesting one. So for us, the digital access card service has now moved beyond a pilot program, and we have a policy now. It's an adopted service, and the policy states that those cards are made available to students in our service district. So that's kind of what we're hanging our hat on, that those students are enrolled in schools that are in our service district. There is one other school nearby who serves some students in our district and has students that live out of county. It just happens to be where they're sitting. And we have not reached out to them about this card, and that's kind of the sticky wicket, is that some of those students don't technically, I don't know, that school is serving two different counties, and it's just kind of a little more complicated matter. So that's the way we're looking at it.
Gotcha. Yeah, Laura, this is Beth again. When I was at my old library, Johnson County, our policy was just any child who was a student at a Johnson County school could have a card, whether or not they lived in the county. Because sometimes it's a teacher's child or something like that. But we figure if the schools are letting them go to school in the county, then they should get a library card just to increase access.
And that's kind of how we are looking at it as well. And boy, we talk a lot about here about having as few boundaries as we can get away with. I mean, we follow laws and we follow policy and we follow best practice. So we're very much diligent that way, but we try to say yes as much as we can. The last thing that I would share regarding challenges is that I do know that when Julie distributes cards to her students at the beginning of the school year, she does take them online to the student portal to show them around and get them started. And I know that sometimes, there's technical issues with a bunch of students accessing that portal simultaneously. So Julie and I do spend a bit of time talking about where that challenge lies. If it's with, the bandwidth at the school, if it's between point A and point B, if it's with, we do host that content offsite. So we're always looking at that to see if we can make that better. But she does have a way that she works around that. So she makes it work because she wants it to be a good experience. But that has been a challenge. Also, we do get a lot of feedback from 3 of the schools that use our card, but not a lot of feedback from one of them. So with that one school that we don't hear a lot of feedback, we do wonder if they're utilizing their card as much as the others, but we assume that they're finding value. We just don't get as much feedback. And then lastly, we do worry that one day a parent will take exception to something their child accesses regarding our digital content, because there's ebooks and all sorts of things that parents may have a different opinion about. But we do try to make it clear in the parent letter that the ultimate responsibility lies with the parent or guardian to be involved in their child's selection and use of whatever they're accessing. And then lastly, just to touch on goals for the future, for us, it's just continuing to meet community need and to keep our wonderful relationships with the schools going, and then to add schools and students to the program, or to develop other programs that impact them as opportunities present themselves. And the next slide. Thank you, Beth.
There you go.
And if there's other questions, we're happy to answer them, or we can be emailed after the fact. I know that was a lot of information.
No, that was great. We might have one question coming up. Let's see. Oh, we have a couple people typing. I think what we might do is hold on these questions. I'll make a note of them. And we will go ahead and transition to our next speakers while people are typing. So let me unshare this screen. Sorry, everyone. Technical time. So I'm going to do that. And then from here, sorry. From here, we should be able to share Hamilton East's presentation. There we go. And I think we'll go ahead and get started with them. Oh, here, wait 1 second. How long does this program take? Okay, so Megan will ask your question at the end, and Jane, the entire presentation will be archived and available for you to view at your leisure within 30 days. Okay? All right, so here is Lori.
Good morning. My name is Lori Holowinski, and I am the Youth Services Manager at the Noblesville branch of Hamilton East Public Library. I was previously at the Fishers branch at the beginning of this project. I'm here with Molly Mrozowski, who is our Collection Services Manager, Anna Sayers, who is our ILS and Electronic Resources Librarian, and Terry Zabonik, who is the Media Specialist at Fall Creek Intermediate School in Fishers. You will find our contact information on the last slide in this PowerPoint. Our pictures are on this slide. We're here to tell you the story of how we partnered with our school systems to create student ID library accounts. Every project starts with a need. We needed to find a way to reduce barriers to the use of HEPL, which is our abbreviation for Hamilton East Public Library, online resources by students and teachers. Back in 2012, we began talking with the Hamilton Southeastern Media Specialists about finding a way for students to access HEPL's online resources in the classroom more easily. Ultimately, we determined that using the students' ID numbers for authentication was the direction we wanted to go. But what about removing barriers for kids who want to check out library materials too? We also wanted students to be able to use their student ID number to check out physical items from the library. So our project expanded with that in mind. And what were our goals? Along with knowing your purpose as you work through implementing an idea, it is good to start with a few clear goals. Defining your goals allows you to collect data and anecdotal information that will help you measure success. Keep your goals simple and measurable. You may not be able to set up a way to measure changes over time in your community, which would be outcomes, but you can measure changes in usage and glean comments from teachers and students to help you determine if you're meeting your goals. The goals of this project were to provide easy access to more resources than schools alone can provide, to allow students to use HEPL resources seamlessly alongside school resources, and to create an environment where using HEPL resources is a natural process for students. As with most public libraries, HEPL has a long history of working with our school systems to get library cards into the hands of students. The slide you are seeing now is a brief history of how the Student ID Library Account project progressed from promoting library cards to partnering with our school systems to create library accounts. This slide is a little text dense, so I'll give you a moment to read it. Two levels of access. Through discussions with school officials, we learned that it was important to them that students would not incur fines and fees without their parents' knowledge. With that in mind, we planned a two-level structure for student ID accounts in which an online access account is created for each student with the option to upgrade the account or to link their ID number to an existing youth account. Student ID accounts that allow access to online resources have the profile of student, while upgraded or linked accounts have the profile of youth. On this slide, you can see the privileges associated with each type of account. The technical side. We needed to work with our ILS and our vendors to implement this project. Molly took on a new role in collection services, having moved over from Fisher's Youth Services. We now had someone in the position to move forward with these changes who had worked on the project from the beginning and was motivated to work with the schools. Molly began by making sure alternate numbers would be accepted by our vendors. Since we use Easy Proxy to authenticate for off-site use, most of these were easy. As long as the patron account is in good standing and not expired, Easy Proxy allows access. We did have to work with Overdrive, Hoopla, Freegal, and Mango to modify our card number conventions, essentially removing any, to allow these 5 to 6 digit numbers to pass. The next big hurdle was how to load the tens of thousands of users in batch. This involves a complicated transformation of data, and luckily we hired Anna, who dove right in and figured out this process. Anna receives HSE, that's Hamilton Southeastern, applications via JotForm, and at least once each school year from Noblesville schools via Excel. She transforms this data into a template that can be loaded into our Circe server. We are a hosted site. Once the file is loaded, she can run a batch user load report and the student accounts are activated.
Hi, this is Terry to give you a little perspective from the media specialist side. The Hamilton Southeastern media specialists have always had the goal for our students to become lifelong learners and users of the public library. With that in mind, and the onset of our one-to-one program with iPads, We contacted HEPL about the possibility of our students being able to access the HEPL databases at school and at home. Each school was assigned a 14-digit HEPL account number that was only for use with electronic resources. This was so beneficial for our students and teachers. The only problem we had was how difficult it was for our students to remember and accurately type in the 14-digit number each time they used the databases. The media specialist made cards and taped them on lab computers, but it was still a problem, especially for our youngest students. Being able to use their 6-digit student ID numbers has helped students immensely. Our next step is to make it even easier and give parents an opt-out only form. Sometimes this form gets lost in the shuffle of all the other back-to-school forms.
And of course, there were challenges. We encountered challenges along the way as we worked from idea to implementation. In working with 2 school systems, it became necessary to develop a slightly different procedure for each system. We also encountered some duplicate ID numbers between the 2 systems. Bringing awareness to library staff, media specialists, classroom teachers, students, and parents was a challenge, especially explaining the slight differences in procedure between the 2 school systems and the differences between the digital access account and the upgraded accounts. There seems to still be some confusion on how to access resources, which logins to use. We manipulated the Easy Proxy login screen to be more user-friendly and clear about what information we need to authenticate the use. We also adjusted the Easy Proxy intrusion attempt parameters to help avoid service being blocked to IP addresses.
Can I ask a quick question about Hoopla?
Yes.
So they are wondering, Stephanie wants to know if Hoopla is available to them, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So how do you deal with budgeting for an unknown amount of usage by students? Because what if a whole class all of a sudden wants to all download the same thing?
Right. I will ask Molly. She does our selection.
Get as close as possible, Molly.
So we do. We set limits on our monthly use by any ID. So we just have the regular limit for cards and are open to it. I suppose we will have to reevaluate that as Hoopla in general is taking off usage-wise, and our spending in that platform is going up. But for right now, we have our strict just patron limit, and they're falling under it.
Great. Thank you.
And how do we measure success? While students in our school districts have always had access to HEPL's online resources, this project has removed barriers to access. Now, children whose parents don't bring them to the library to get a traditional card use their student ID to gain access.
That's great.
Teachers use HEPL online resources in the classroom without using their personal library card number or their school database card number. Teachers assign homework knowing that the majority of students can access online resources through the public library. HEPL worked with staff at both schools to ensure that a link to our website is loaded onto all school-issued iPads, so students can use HEPL resources right alongside their school resources.
This partnership between HSE and HEPL has made research so much easier and better for our students. Our elementary media specialists cannot say enough about how their students benefit from using student-friendly databases like PebbleGo. Animal research projects have been transformed. Upper elementary, junior high, and high school students regularly use these databases for research projects. The media specialists teach lessons about using credible sources and promote these databases every chance we get. We feel that our students are becoming lifelong learners and understanding the importance of using credible, subscription-based databases in their research.
Do you guys use Inspire at all?
Yes, Inspire is one that we do use.
Is using HEPL online resources becoming a natural process for students? Our numbers bear out the fact that usage of online resources typically used by students has increased since this project has been implemented. In 2014, we had 40,907 uses of PebbleGo, and in 2016, usage increased to 75,397. While numbers indicate success, I see a survey in our future to get feedback from the students themselves.
That would be interesting.
Thank you for the opportunity to tell the story of Heppel's partnership with our school systems to use student ID numbers as their library card number. Our contact information is on the last slide, so don't hesitate to get in touch if we can help with anything as you undertake a similar journey.
Great, thank you, Lori. We have a question. Patty, if you're still there and available, if you could unmute your microphone, we had a question for you. It's up here a little further. Let me grab it. They wanted to know, it was Megan, and she wanted to know how long did the program take to develop from start to finish up at Jasper County? What was kind of the timeline for that?
It took us about 9 months to roll it out. Thankfully, as I explained, we had a library in our neighborhood who had just launched one. This was in a nearby county, so we started out by chatting with them to understand how they had done it. And then once we had that framework, then we had to sort out how we were going to set ours up. So I would say that part of it took probably 3 months. Then we had to get the cards ordered and wait on them to come in. And while we were waiting on that to happen, I was drafting the parent letter. And then when the cards arrived, Becky and our systems administrator, Sheila, had to do some magic on the technical side of things to get those ready to go. In that first year, I did a physical letter to parents, which took a lot of time to copy, and we only did that 1 year. After that, we got wise, we went green, and we did an electronic letter. So that first year was the longest. It took 9 months to do it, but now that we have the process sorted out, when we relaunch each year, it's a pretty simple matter to do it.
Okay, that's not too bad. Are you guys considering at all expanding beside or beyond digital? Or are you just taking it one step at a time?
Meaning library cards for those students beyond a digital card?
Yeah.
I would say Julie and I haven't talked about that. Actually, while as we concluded our remarks and as we were waiting for the second group to get ready to present, we were talking about the fact that it seems like, at least in her neighborhood, that the students are a little more interested in the electronic access than they are to physical things. And then as far as getting to the library when they're younger, they're probably coming more than they are once they get older and get busier with activities and jobs and things. So at this time, no, we haven't really had any serious conversations about doing a big push to get a traditional card, although certainly we would love to add to our registrations. I do know that a couple of my librarians, my branch managers, have been talking about, and we've developed a way to do this, registering borrowers, registering new patrons when we're at outreach programs. Not necessarily for students, although that applies to them as well, but just when we're out in the community meeting with all ages, taking advantage of that time with them to register folks for cards. So we have had some conversation about that.
Okay. All right, well, we have another question. This one is for both presenters. So, Patty, while we have you, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to you, Lori. Stephanie wants to know, do you have a homeschoolers policy? Can students being homeschooled get the student digital access card? And I guess in Hamilton East case, can they get some sort of special access card also? Although I suppose they could just be regular patrons, right? But we'll start with Patty, if you want to talk about the digital access card real quick first.
Okay. First of all, we don't have a policy for homeschoolers. So we just serve our homeschool students as we would any student. We have not marketed or talked with the homeschool families about a digital access card. To be honest with you, I think a lot of those students are visiting our libraries probably more regularly than the folks that are in the public schools. not that I ever did a survey on that, but they're in and out of our buildings anyway, and I think that they're being served by that traditional card. You know what I mean? So the digital
Yeah.
access card really came from the observation that a lot of these students, for example, in Julie's school, don't have that traditional card because they have not been able to get to the library to get one, or their parents haven't brought them. But she recognized their need to have this access. So this was our way to meet that need.
Great, that makes sense. Did you have anything to add, Lori, about Hamilton East?
No, homeschool families would just have regular borrowing privileges, which would include using the databases and online resources.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm just going to put this question out there for the people listening. If anybody out there is doing something like this, share it in the comments section. And then also, if anybody is considering doing this but feels like there are some roadblocks, perhaps, what do you think those roadblocks are? Maybe we can help you come up with some solutions to those. So go ahead and type that stuff in the chat box if you would like. And in the meantime, I'm just going to quickly share my own story. So I was at the Johnson County Public Library for 12 years before I came to the state library. This is Beth again. And the last couple of years that I was at Johnson County, we started trying to get library card access into the hands of those in all of our school districts in Johnson County. There are 4 school districts there. And so what we ended up doing, the first year we did a library card drive, and we made it a competition between the different school systems. In the elementary schools specifically is where we started. And we delivered, we worked with the media specialists and the principals. We delivered letters and library card applications to all the schools, enough for all of the kids. And then we picked them up, we processed the cards, and then we hand delivered the cards to them. The second year that we did it, we focused on the kindergartners because we had hoped in theory that all those older kids had already gone through the library card drive, and if they were going to get a card, hopefully they did. So we focused on the kindergartners the second year, and we started a program called Libraries, I think we called it Kindergarten Stars or Library Stars, and in which kindergartners, we did the same drive for them to get cards. And then additionally, we wanted to get them into the library because we didn't necessarily see return on investment with, all these kids had cards, but they weren't necessarily coming in. So in order to get them to come in, we decided that we would make it a little bit of a, not really a contest, but like a little bit of a reading program of sorts in which they would come to the library. Each time they came to the library, the kindergartners would get a different little prize. And they could come up to 4 times during 1 month, and they get a different prize each time because the studies say, I think if you repeat a behavior 3 or more times, then it becomes a little bit more of a habit. So we hope that by getting those kindergartners in, that they would get used to coming to the library and like it. Now, I will say I did leave Johnson County right as that was kicking off, so I'm not sure of what the results were, but I think they were pretty good. And I do know that the following school year, they put on the school supply list, we talked to the superintendents, and in the Center Grove area, they put on the school supply list library card. So we were really excited by that outcome. I mean, I think we only got there because we started working on that relationship, 2 years ahead of time and kind of planting the idea of how necessary library cards are, how useful they are to students. So let's see, we don't have any other questions. Did you guys have anything else that you wanted to say? Patty, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
We're just happy to be a part of the webinar today to share our story. As I explained earlier, I think that in Indiana we do a great job of working together, and we have a question, we find somebody else who's done it, and people are so willing to share their journey and what worked, what didn't work for them. And if we didn't have that, I don't know how we would have launched a lot of the services that we have launched here, because we see the benefit of that, and we're happy to pass it along when we're able.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you for participating. And thank you to Hamilton East for coming here and participating. I have put up on your screens, everybody, a couple of files that you can download. The top one is one of Jasper County's supplemental documents, and there's some good information in there for you, as well as the bottom one, which is the letter that they sent to parents. So they're giving that to you to view, and if you want to do something similar, you're welcome to. And then in the middle is the LEU certificate for today. So if you need a certificate, just click on that, and then it will prompt you to download the file. And it should download right to your computer. And I just want to reiterate that you will not be able to type in that Word document except for the spot where you're supposed to type in your name. I know that kind of can be kind of strange when you open it up and you can't type in it, but there should be one spot you can type, and that's for your name. So give that a try. And if nobody else has any questions, then I'm going to leave these documents up for a couple more minutes, and we will sign off. Thank you again to all the presenters, and thank you guys for attending.